everyone, welcome to this very special episode of Best Kept Secrets with me, Lele Pons. This is our 10th episode, and I just want to take a moment to say that doing this podcast has brought me so much joy and has evolved into something bigger than what I imagined it would be. And you know what? It's amazing how much this experience has enriched my life, so thank you all so much for actually being a part of it. By talking about the secrets we've all kept, I've learned so much about the lives, hobbies, struggles, and I've been really proud to create a space where you can talk openly and freely. And everyone I've talked to so far has talked about what a relief it is to get their secrets off their chest and say them out loud. And that is the goal. That's the goal of this podcast. I want to thank all of them for actually calling and taking the time to talk to me and to talk to all of us. We have covered so many different topics so far, and there are going to be much more to come, but there is one subject we have yet to talk about.
The following content contains adult subject matter, including sensitive material, and is intended for adult consumption only. It may not be suitable for all audiences. Therefore, discretion is advised. Lele Pons is not a trained expert, but is using her personal experiences and platform to create a space for sensitive discussions.
I've received many emails from you guys about addiction, drug misuse, and I've been struggling to see how best to address it. I want everyone who emailed me to know that I hear you and support you, but I'm not at all qualified to give you any advice on the topic, aside from urging anyone struggling to please get help. I've invited my friend Mike Majlak to join me on the show today to talk about his journey with addiction, how coming clean helped him get clean, and how discussing his secret has played a big part in his recovery. He's very brave for speaking out about it, so please everyone give a big warm welcome to my friend Mike Majlak.
There you go. What's up, Lele?
Hey, I said it right.
You crushed it.
What's up, Mike?
What's going on? How are you? Thanks for having me on your show.
I don't know who doesn't know you, Mike, but for the people who don't know you, can you give a quick introduction to let people know what you do, what your life has been like currently?
I hate
Who
doing
are
this.
you?
I hate
Who are
doing
you,
this.
Mike?
I was hoping you did this for me. Mike Majlak. I like to say that I'm an author first now. I wrote a book called The Fifth Vital that got released in May of this year about my struggles with addiction. And we're saying it that way because that whatever.
Yeah.
So I put this book out, and that's been absolutely changed my life. Bestseller on Amazon, became a best-selling audiobook as well.
Hey, that's amazing.
But, more than anything else, a content creator, kind of like you. I make YouTube videos on my YouTube channel called The Night Shift. And, of course, a member of the number one podcast in the world.
That's a lot.
And you listen, we like to think it's the number one podcast in the world. Is it actually?
It's the one that I hear. So
that's right.
Yeah. And I think I met you when you were doing the Love Stack, no?
Yeah, that's how I met most people in LA, through this funky furniture company called Lovesack. That's how I met Logan at first, and that's how I met a bunch of other influencers. These giant oversized beanbag chairs. Everybody wanted them in their house.
Oh my God!
But they're so expensive that nobody wants to pay for them, and so they had a relatively young, spry guy on the marketing team by the name of Mike Majlak that became kind of the guy that Hollywood talked to when they wanted these giant beanbags. And so I'm sure that's how me and you linked up to start. But
I've always loved you, though. Like, even in events or whatever, I always like, Mike, how are you? How are you? I want to know, as you know, this show is about best kept secrets. And I know you recently, you had a big one and shared it with the world. So I want you to tell us where you were and what your life was like 10 years ago.
10 years ago, I was 25 years old. I was living in Milford, Connecticut, across the country from LA, obviously. And I mean, I don't really know how else to say it. I was addicted to drugs. I had, that would be one of the last years I spent, the tail end of a 10-year fight with addiction to opiates, which is a massive problem in this country. And through injuries that I had sustained as a child, I got a taste of Oxycontin and other opiates and eventually developed a dependence on them. And it led to a decade-long battle that almost took my life. And, I was have seen some of the most horrifying things and been through some of the most terrible things that you could ever imagine, from car accidents to just really, really bad injuries that have, left massive scars on my body, and just emotional trauma and, legal problems with family and friends dying and everything you could possibly imagine from an addiction that lasted that long. So 10 years ago, I was in the thick of it. I was at the end of it. And a year after that, when I was 26, I got clean.
Wow.
But at that point, 10 years ago, exactly, I was in the thick of it.
I just want to say it's amazing that you were able to get out of that. So I think that you should be super proud of yourself. And it's just like, you're so inspiring to so many people. And I know that this book probably touched so many lives. And I just want you to know, for those who don't know, because I didn't know this, what is that, what they gave you for the painkiller? What is it called?
They gave me, so it's a drug called Oxycontin.
Yeah.
This is a story that kind of has defined America over the past decade. And it was this extremely over-marketed painkiller that came out, released by a company called Purdue Pharma, that was being kind of illegally and fraudulently marketed to the masses. And so a lot of kids my age, in 2003, when I tried my first Oxy, I was in high school. I was 17 years old. And a lot of kids my age fell into the same trap that I did, of either having injuries and then falling into it recreationally, or just trying it at a party or something like that, and ended up, suffering through the same kind of addiction that I did. And so it was probably the one pill that kind of sparked this opiate epidemic that 40 to 50,000 Americans are dying from every year, and that is not really being talked about as much as it should be.
That's crazy that it's like legal if it can cause that,
It is, and it relies on the responsibility of the end user. It relies on the responsibility of the person it's being prescribed to. But what Purdue Pharma and what the doctors failed to mention was just how addictive and how destructive this drug was. And so it takes a lot of that decision-making power away from the person using it.
I understand, and that's very important for people to know, because they probably many people probably don't know what that is. So thank you so much. And I want to know, what made you decide to come out and talk about it publicly?
My story was crazy. There's a lot of addiction stories out there. A lot of people who have gone through rehabs and have gone through all of the emotional struggles and trauma and everything. And every addiction is nasty. They're gnarly, nasty, grimy parts of people's lives when they have to be reduced to someone who needs something and having no access to it. And the things that people do in their addiction to get drugs, it's a very, very gruesome story. But I knew that mine was just a little bit more. There were so many incidents of stuff that just didn't make sense.
Yeah. In
2008, I had gotten so high, I had fallen asleep while driving, 60 miles an hour, and literally drove off a cliff into a ravine. And the car was on fire and smoking, and my face was covered in blood. And this was an every week occurrence for me. And so as I lived through trial and all the court cases, all the funerals for friends that were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, all of the high-speed chases, I realized I'm like, especially as I then came out of it and started to put together a life that meant something, a life that wanted to make an impact, a life that wanted to help people, a life that wanted to be successful, and more importantly, a life that wanted to make my parents proud of me. As I started to feel that, I knew that I had a story worth telling. And so right after I got clean in 2010, I started to write. And I couldn't stop writing. And for years, I wrote on and off. I would take 2 years off. And, eventually I had a work that was good enough to be molded into what is the Fifth Vital.
I remember when I was doing my docuseries, I was debating on what to put in and what to put out. So I wonder, was the writing process the same for you?
Yeah, no. There were so many times where I would write something and I would look at it on the page. For example, I've talked about this on other shows, but I'll tell you today, kind of like my darkest moment, my mom had entrusted in me right near the end of my addiction. I had told her that I was getting better. I was working on it. Mom, I'm working on it. I could do this. And her father, my grandfather, who was kind of like her closest thing in life, like the most important thing to her, he had stayed with her through their divorce and took care of her after her mother had gone away. And he was her favorite thing on this earth. And he came down with Parkinson's and cancer and dementia. And she had entrusted me to come and watch him and to help, because she couldn't take care of him. She had a job and she was a single mother, and she was trying to do all this stuff to take care of her kids and take care of herself. And she had asked me to come watch her father in kind of his last days. And there was this one time where I had gotten a new addiction. And I kind of have to tell it. It was an addiction to crack cocaine.
Yeah.
I had gotten high in the attic of my grandfather's house, and there was this day when he was just in his recliner and he was calling for me, please help me. And I was so paranoid and scared and nervous, and I wasn't able to go down and help him, and it wouldn't stop, and he kept screaming, please help me. And that moment of like shame and sorrow and regret is something that I still live with to today. It's something that I'll probably never forget. And when I wrote that in the book for the first time and looked at it on the page, I broke down crying. I cried for like a half an hour and was in a way, that whole writing process for me was so cathartic and therapeutic, and it felt good, but at certain times it was so painful. And that was one of the moments where I was like, yo, I can't put this in. But for whatever reason,
you have to, though.
Yeah,
you have to, because that was probably the moment. You know, there's certain things that you don't understand why things happen to you in life. But I think that was one of those moments that if that didn't happen, you probably wouldn't have been like clicked and been like, this is fucked up.
That was my rock bottom. That was like you said, that was the moment when I knew that something had to change. And believe it or not, it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough to make me change. I kept going, and I was saddened by it, and I regretted it. But it wasn't until about 6 months or so after that my probation officer, after I'd given several dirty urines, basically told me, yo, you're going to have to make a decision right now. Either you're going to jail or you're going to rehab.
How did you actually get to hide the fact that you were high from your family and friends?
It's not easy. It's not easy. And I did a decent job of it for a little bit, but it was like, I think what happened was my mom found out that I was smoking weed first. And that was kind of like the first thing I started doing, was just like getting high. Like, I think a lot of high school kids out there get high. They,
Yeah, no, I know. I think everybody that I know does.
Yeah, right. And so, and I'm not saying it's okay or not okay or whatever, but my mom eventually caught on to the fact that I was smoking weed. I think what ended up happening was it was hard for her to decipher between, oh, he's doing this and now he's doing other stuff. And so at first I didn't tell her, and I kept it a secret, and I, went to dinners, messed up on opiates for a long time. But eventually it got to a point that it was so hard to hide, so dire, so desperate, so like I think with any secret, like especially a big one like that, it comes to a point where you just need to talk about it. You have to, like, You've tried so hard not to. You've tried to keep it in so hard. And there's a lot of people who are really good at never talking. They'll just keep secrets forever. They'll never talk about it. I'm not one of those people. I felt like I was going to burst. I wanted my parents to tell me, Mikey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. I needed that. I needed someone to know that I was going to a really dark place. And eventually I told my parents, and the way I've looked at secrets my whole life is they're like a roller coaster or like jumping out of a plane. It's so scary, that moment before you're about to jump out of the plane and skydive for the first time or do this crazy roller coaster. So scary. Your nerves are shot. You think there's no way you can do it. I could never tell this secret. And then you do it, and it changes your life forever. And it is the best thing that you've ever done. And you stand there looking back up at the skies. You stand there with the parachute around you saying, thank God I told someone what I was going
through. And I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Because you have such a, you're so scared, and you're probably thinking so many bad things that could happen. And you don't know what's going to happen, because it's doubting of like the future. You never, the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen. And I think after, the parachute, when I've gone skydiving before, for anybody that has never gone skydiving, you're literally feel something in your stomach for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then after that,
smooth sailing. Yeah.
Yeah. Super calm. So I think that's a good way to put it. And when they found out, did they want you to go to rehab? Did you decide to do it yourself?
No. So I end up continuing on. I mean, I told my parents very early, and my mom had to struggle with the knowledge of knowing that her son was addicted to opiates for a long time. I put my mom through some stuff that I just couldn't wish upon my worst enemy, honestly. My mom essentially mourned my death 5 years before I got clean. I mean, she had to separate herself from the idea that I was ever going to beat it. And that's, I know it's so sad to say, and it's just it's almost hard to even comprehend, but she was so sure that call was coming. Hey, Robin, this is the Milford police. We found your son. He overdosed.
Hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
100%. And that's kind of where she was at. And so she had to deal with that for a very, very long time. And so did my father and the rest of my family before I eventually, the dominoes that fell that led to my probation officer kind of forcing me to, she called my bluff. I was in probation in Milford. I was on probation for about 5 years. And for the years leading up to this individual probation officer by the name of Ellen Ferrari, shout out Ellen Ferrari, if for some reason you're listening to this. I've already written about her in the book and talked to her about it on other podcasts. But I was in a drug maintenance program, if people know what it is, something by the name of methadone maintenance for about 6 years. And it was helping me manage my addiction. And what a lot of people didn't know is that I was still using as well. And I was in this program, and a lot of the probation officers, even though I was giving dirty urine still, were saying, well, he's in a program. Like, what are we going to do about it? There's nothing we can do.
They don't care.
They didn't really care. And they were like, he's already doing everything he can do to fix it. He's getting methadone, he's going to this program. Like, what are we going to do? And it wasn't until the probation officer before her got switched out, and I got switched to this woman, Ellen Ferrari. And I remember I went to her the first time I met her. She's like, okay, go pee in a cup. And I went and I peed in the cup and I brought it back. And she called me the next day and she was like, hey, Mike, your urine came back positive for numerous things. And she gave me like a second to explain it. And I was like, sorry, I've been having trouble at home. Things just haven't been good. I'll do better. And then she pushed me a little bit more. And I was like, and by the way, like maybe that urine test was wrong. Like you guys mixed them up. Like I did the whole thing that every addict does. Like you just lie and try to dig your way out.
Defensive mode. Yeah.
Defensive mode. Right. And she goes, and she already had her mind made up. She was just playing with me at this point. And finally she goes, okay, Mike, here's the deal. I'm going to call you tomorrow and you're either going to let me know whether you are going to serve out your 5-year suspended sentence in prison or you're going to go to rehab tomorrow. And I was like, you can't do this to me. Like, you're not going to. And she said, talk to you tomorrow morning. And she hung up the phone.
That's the type of people you need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that was kind of one of the first times I realized the power of having a person that will call you out on your shit. It's so important. And the next day I called her and said, yo, I'm going to detox. And that day I went to New Haven, to SCRC, a clinic in a detox in New Haven. I entered into the detox program. I was there for 5 days. I left, went into a long-term program after that. And I got out in, I think, early August of 2010. And that was the start of the journey.
I've gone through a lot of people for like my OCD and everything. And it takes this one lady. She's so short. And she does so much reverse psychology.
Right.
And that's what it is. And she doesn't care if you get mad, sad, anything. It's like she's like in the military.
Right.
Like, and that's what you need, because at the end of the day, you're not right at all. And she knows that, and she's not gonna bullshit. She doesn't get lazy to tell you the shit that you need to hear, and doesn't give a fuck about you, who you are, a celebrity. Doesn't. She's doing her job, and that's something that it's very hard. Actually, it's very hard to find someone like that, because they're usually they know that, oh, you have a problem, I'm gonna be like a little gentle with you. She gives no fucks, and that's why you need someone that's pushing you, and that's why I fuck with this lady who you're talking about. I'm going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because we are just getting started. Welcome back to Best Kept Secrets. The holidays are quickly approaching and we're all going to be spending a lot of time with our families. So if you have funny or embarrassing traditions that you keep secret, I want you right now to go to shots.com/secrets to submit your crazy story, and maybe you'll be on my next podcast. All right, let's jump back into my interview with my good friend, Mike. I want to know, because I've been there too, how was rehab like for you? What do you think was the best lesson or skill that you've learned there?
My rehab was not a fun one. My rehab was a state-funded rehab that was built as a diversion center to jail. And so in a lot of ways, it was just a form of a prison, a form of a jail. And so it was basically it was basically your last stop before jail. If you can't get it right in this hospital setting, you're going to serve out your term. And so mine was a 5-year suspended sentence. I would have done, 50% of my time and done 2.5, 3 years in prison, which was what was about to happen if I wasn't able to get it together. And it was wild. I mean, there were fights, there was a lot of, arguments. I got in a fight and had all the security called to this code blue. I'll always remember code blue, because I got in a fight with this other kid from my hometown. And so you have to think about it like this. People are going through some of the worst pain, some of the most insane mental anguish that you could ever imagine. And they're cramped into this place, especially for people who don't have a large amount of money and can afford these lavish rehab centers. They're cramped in with a lot of other people who are going through the same thing. So I was in a quad with 3 other men. It wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't horrible, and that was kind of like the building stone for me to start getting into group meetings, to start talking about my problems and to start opening up. And that was one of the first times that I learned how good it felt to open up about my problems. And it was also the time when I picked up, believe it or not, writing. And I got a journal in rehab and I started to write my first pieces of fiction. And I started to realize, wow, I'm a really, really, really strong writer. I love writing. So rehab for me was one of the most important experiences of my life. And it also showed me that no matter what happened, I had a support system that would always be there for me. And every Tuesday, like clockwork, my mom and dad would show up and visit me. And so it was such an important time for me.
And were you honest with people in rehab? Like, did you actually speak up, like group therapy? How important was it to hear them?
Massive. I talk about this in the book a lot. There's just nothing in the world as important as the shared stories of those who struggle. There is nothing in the world like it. Knowing that someone out there is going through the same exact thing that you are.
Because you don't feel alone.
When I started going to therapy after rehab and talking to my therapist and saying, for as long as I can remember, I've always had to put the TV on only even numbers. And when I walk out of the house, I always check the doorknob 3 times. Even though I know it's locked, my brain says, go back. Something's wrong with me. I'm the only person in the world that does this. Why is it like this? And it was like this pain. And hearing her say, you have no idea how many clients that I treat that have these same issues. And then going into group meetings and having the people tell the same stories and people going through the same things that I went through changed my life. It made me feel like I was a part of a club of people who were working to get better. There's just nothing you can relate to more than the pain that you've already gone through going on with someone else. It's just, there's nothing like it.
So Mike, I want to know, talk to me about what life was after you got clean. Were you able to talk about it with people and with new friends?
Yeah. I mean, the thing I feel about secrets and about, the stuff that we hold close to our chest is only strong relationships kind of foster people's desire to tell secrets, right? And so when I got out of rehab, I didn't have any really strong relationships. All of my friends were either still actively using or had passed away or were in jail or whatever. And when I got out, I was very alone. Luckily, I had the NA and A program to kind of talk about stuff, but it wasn't until I started to build more strong relationships that I started to open up to people close to me. And so, when I got my job at Lovesac, in the very beginning, I told no one. No one knew that I had any kind of past. I even was not hiding, but they didn't ask me at the time to disclose my felony. I was a felon at the time, and I was ashamed and scared, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know who to talk to in my early recovery. But then as I built a relationship with the people at Lovesac, they saw that I was a good person. They saw that I had a wealth of knowledge on certain things and knew social media and how to harness it for marketing. And they started to trust me. It's a trust thing at the end of the day. And until you have people in your life that you trust and they trust you, you won't feel comfortable sharing secrets. And so people always say, talk about your problems, tell your secrets. And it's
not that easy.
It's not, because it's the most important thing. And it feels so good to do so. You need to have the right people in your life to do it with. And unless you have those people, I've always loved therapy. I've had a lot of really great therapists, and I recommend therapy to everybody. At least give it a shot. Go to a therapist's office, sit, give it a shot. I remember the first time I did therapy, the feeling I had when I walked out of the therapist's office.
It's like a detox.
Oh my God. I felt incredible. I felt lighter than I had in so long because I just talked about stuff that I never thought I would talk about. And I got so much stuff off my chest. And so I think it's kind of just a matter of finding people that you trust first and then opening up to them.
And what was most people's reaction? Because you said that they trusted you, and you were someone that they probably didn't even expect that had all that background. So what were the reactions? Were they like, what the fuck?
The first thing I noticed about people's reaction to the story that I told them was that they liked me more. And that was the weirdest thing to me. It was so weird.
I know.
They automatically liked me more because think about it. Whether you're in the business world, the school, in school or whatever setting, you're always trying to convince people I'm smart, I'm cool, I can do this, I can do that. And it's this big, contest to see who's the best at this or the best at that. It's this competition. Mm-hmm. But everyone's also suffering. Everyone's also suffering from their own issues. And so when you let people know, hey, listen, I'm a human just like you.
They can relate.
And it builds one of the most automatic rapports that I've ever seen in life. You can make people your friend automatically by just telling them, yo, here are some of the things that I struggle with. If you ever want to talk to me about anything, I'm here for you. I just want to let you know, I go through my own stuff. And as long as you're authentic and transparent about it, people read that. They feel that authentic energy. And so when I started telling people that, I sat down with Sean, and I'll always remember this, the CEO of Lovesac. And, he had told me that the company was going to officially hire me. And at first I was just working for Sean, and I'd met him through Craigslist. And I worked for him, and I did such good work that eventually he said, listen, the brand wants to officially hire you, that you just got to do a quick background process. And I always loved how everybody talked about the background process and the criminal check so nonchalantly. And they were like, oh, it's so easy. Yeah. But for people like me, it's our world sinks. Our world crashes all around us because now I know they're about to find out my secret.
People like when you seem human.
Yes.
When you're not perfect.
Yes.
People are attracted to that. Oh, she's real. He's real, man. It's not just a phase of, oh my God, he's so perfect. I hate that shit. 100%. I can't be friends with someone that does not have one problem.
100%. And that's why, some of my closest friends in this city, even though obviously I'm best friends with Logan and we have this weird friendship, a lot of my other really close friends in the city are people that have battled the same demons that I do. The people that I just have so much love for that are in the same lane as me and that are fighting the same battle as me. And so it's just always been, at first it was a battle for me to destigmatize the mental health conversation that involved me and to make people like me and to make people feel okay about my past. But now I want to do it on the grand scale. Now I want that conversation for everybody to feel comfortable. I want to destigmatize that mental health conversation for everybody. Everybody in the world should be talking about what's bothering them, talking about what they suffer with, talking about what they struggle with somebody else, and not feeling ashamed, not feeling a stigma.
And I admire you so much because I love when it's a person, but you know what? At the end, you find out something that makes them so human.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that about you because, it's all fun and games. I see you in events. But now that I know more your story, I can sit down and talk to you. I probably would invite you to dinner.
I would love that, Lele. I would love that. It just creates a rapport. I've said this for probably the past year and a half or 2 years, ever since I kind of got to Hollywood and started making content, that the wave of the relatable and authentic influencer is upon us. People want to know who they're listening to. What is their story? What do they have? What value do they have to offer back to me, the viewer, the listener? And I've been honest since day one about my problems and my demons and drug addiction and is just one part of it. There's a massive mental illness aspect to it. And I've suffered for a very long time from a severe anxious condition and OCD.
Do you still have it?
Absolutely.
Do you still have depression and anxiety?
Yeah. I've always liked to say that I don't really consider myself depressed. Unfortunately, when anxiety gets bad enough, it almost causes a depression because it's like you're fighting a battle that you feel sometimes like you can't win.
You're not having fun with it, so you're probably frustrated.
It's very frustrating, and I've luckily learned some really good coping tactics. I talk about biking, whether it's biking, whether it's running, whether it's being in the gym, just sweating every single day has been a tremendous help for me. Just get in the gym, work out, sweat those toxins out, get moving. get your body loose, and that really has helped me calm my nerves. Talking to yourself nicely, be nice to yourself. Don't always be down on yourself. Don't always be worrying about this or worrying about that. Look how far you've come from where you once were, whether you're young or old. You being here, you being a part of this world is a testament to how strong you are. And so give yourself credit for that. Try to eat well, breathe. If you can find some quiet every single day to put your phone down and to quiet your mind, and there's a lot of value there. Battling mental illness is just a matter of finding which coping tactics work best for you. That's it.
I think that, what you're saying is all true because you've had so much experience. Probably people that are just, starting now, they're just like, it's not that easy. It's not that easy, So I want to know, what message do you want people to take from, your book? You probably wrote it for them, for those people. And how do you, because it is hard, and I thank God for your experience. Look how you talk. You talk with so much wisdom. You talk with experience, and people are probably going through that, but don't see the light. Don't see what you see right now, because you've gone through shit and you were able to surpass that. So what is your message for those who are going through right now what you're going through?
It's not easy. It is work. And that's the thing about it. It's like, you need to look at mental health and battling addiction the same way you look at going to the gym to get your body in shape. It is work. It's an exercise. It's a mental exercise. But as long as you come to terms with the fact, not the belief, not the thought, not the idea, but the fact that things will get better. It is the most important thing that anyone will ever tell you. Things will get better. Life comes in waves. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. Many of the problems that we face as either addicts or mental illness sufferers, or as just teenagers or sons and daughters or whatever, are temporary problems. They're always temporary. Everything is healed by time and by coping tactics, by doing the things that you need to do to feel better about yourself. And so my message to people has always been, no matter what happens in life, to just keep going forward. And there was so much of my personal life where I was crawling. I wasn't even crawling. I was scraping with my fingernails, trying to pull myself forward. But no matter what, I kept moving forward. I kept moving forward every single day. And some days you're walking, some days you're running, some days you are crawling on your hands and knees, hoping that the next day gets better. And the message, the most important thing is that it does. If you just keep going and you don't let your light go out, don't let your light go out ever.
You said it. There's one thing that I've struggled with many things, but for me, and I've seen also other people struggling with the same thing, but I see the difference between those who actually manage to get better and those who don't, is the power of willing. Are you willing to actually get better? Because it takes, it's the moment that you're like, I'm willing, so I'm going to do whatever it takes, because some people are just like, it hasn't clicked yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important.
And one thing that's always helped for me, and not as shining in this topic today, but boy, am I happy that we talked about it. But I was always willing to laugh. I love laughing. People always say to me now, they're like, oh, it's so easy for you to spew all this positivity and to talk about how life will get better now, because look at how good your life is now. And I always say to them, if you had seen me laying in ICU, in intensive care. I have been in intensive care so many times with the tube in my nose, down my throat, the breathing machines. I've been through it so many times. The one thing you would notice is that when my grandmother comes in the room or my mother comes in the room, I'm cracking a joke. I'm making everybody laugh, or they're making me laugh. You have to always find a way to look at things lightly and take them seriously, but at the same time to just laugh, you have to keep your spirit high no matter what you're going through. And that's a part of keeping going forward. You have to keep your spirits high.
It's true. And, as you've seen it, I think I obviously agree with that. I used, sketches, even if they were good or bad, I used it for myself in the beginning when I had no fans. How did I start? By using it to make me happy, to make my friends happy, to just distract me from all the shit that was going on and the negativity. And I think that's very important. That's a way of therapy. I think so. And that's a way of turning, turning something that's negative to something positive.
Everything is temporary.
Exactly.
Exactly. If you're listening to this right now and you're having trouble, getting into that mindset where you just laugh at everything. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't like that. One thing I always tell people to do is no matter what happens throughout the course of the day, try your best to force a smile. Even if you have to force it, just smile. I tell people all the time, the reaction you get, the energy that is given back to you, the feeling people get about meeting you or about spending time with you changes so dramatically when you approach them with a smile on your face. Putting out that positive energy, it opens the world up to you. It makes people feel like they can relate to you, like they like you right off the bat. And so even if you're not feeling like you're having a day where you want to joke around or where you want to laugh hysterically or where you even want to be happy on the inside, just do your best to just smile at people. It really is. I truly believe that smiles are a gateway to a better world for everyone. I really believe that. Even on my darkest days, I always tried to just be happy, and to try to remain positive, because it's not always about what it does for you, but it's about what it does to the people around you. And smiles and laughing and happiness are infectious. And so there's a lot of times where people will look to their significant other or look to their boss or look to someone else and try to say, oh, this person's so negative. This person always brings me down.
Yeah.
You may be able to change that by simply trying to bring them up with you. You know what I'm saying? And so just cracking a smile and just being overly kind to people has been something that has really, really helped me. It was a rule that I learned early in my recovery, which was just try at all times to be kind to everyone. It's one of my biggest rules in life. And if you ask pretty much anyone, like they'll tell you like he's one of the nicest guys. Like I really do try to be nice to everybody.
That's something that I've learned is that yes, people can affect you, but no one can change how you're feeling. Because like if someone's having a bad day, yes, you feel it, but you can't say, oh, because of him, I'm mad. No, you're mad because of you. Because you can change that. You can have a smile. You can actually, be like calm and be like, you know what? That's not going to affect me because you control yourself. You can't control what other people is doing or if they're making you, saying something bad about you. You can control yourself.
You can only control your reaction to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's
so great. You can either like cry about it and then at the end it's going to end at the same time. You're going to go to bed and the day is going to go on, or you can actually, instead of crying, like breathe, which is very important, and just try to control. I mean, you probably are inside like maybe feeling bad, but change your actions. That's very important.
Absolutely.
And you end up at the same time, the same thing. The day goes on, but how are you going to go? What lane are you going to go? And that's what I like to do.
It's so important. And I think especially for your audience and the listenership to this show is social media is, now the new beast that a lot of us deal with. And it's the new thing that could either make your world great or make your world bad, and I obviously I'm, I don't know how many people know this or don't know this, but I'm older than most of the people in this space. I'm 35 years old. I've been through the ringer. I told you before the show, I didn't really have a 20s because of my addiction. And so I'm kind of living my late 20s now. But social media has been a tough thing for me even to deal with. And I'm not immune or invincible to the negative comments online. And I've dealt with, a lot of them, whether they're about me or my girlfriend or whatever. And, it's become another thing that I've had to learn to cope with. And I think like one of the biggest things that people need to realize right away or as soon as possible is that social media is not real. It's not real life. Like there is a whole world and this is from somebody who makes all of their money on social media. So it almost is counterproductive for me to say it, but social media is not real life. There's a whole world out there where good things are happening. There's a whole world out there where kindness is happening and people are doing nice things for each other. And so I think another message I have especially for the Gen Zs out there is be mindful of how much power you give to social media. The comments that people have about you, the feelings they have about you, people don't know you. They don't know you. People don't know you well enough to be making those comments. And even if they know you well enough to make them, they don't know you well enough for you to then take those in and think they're real. They're not. Find your crew, find your people, and listen to their feedback. Have them tell you what you're doing wrong in your life, how you can improve. But don't fall into the trap of being at the whim of your friends from high school and what they think about your outfit on Instagram or social media. It's not as important as people think it is.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
The fans just don't thoroughly understand how many factors there are on the other side of the camera. And so they get a small piece of the story and they create this thing. But that's the kind of stuff me and you have to deal with. I wouldn't wish that upon everyone. It's in some ways, you know, the stressors of fame. I say that with air quotes because, you know, who do you consider famous? I don't know. But the stressors of like fame and this Hollywood life are in some ways, you know, equally as stressful as other parts of my life that I've been through. It's not always easy, you know? And so,
it's not.
You know,
there's no rule book to understand how you deal with this, by the way.
Right.
We came into this being like, fuck, this was part of it.
Well, you especially. I mean, you were on the very, very first wave, like you and Logan and Wampa and Amanda.
I did not sign up for this.
Right.
Seriously.
And I'm so, oh my God.
Not.
And I know you are too, and I'll speak for you. I am so thankful, so blessed, so grateful. I love my audience. And especially with the release of the book, I've been able to cultivate this amazing audience of other mental illness sufferers, other people who have had addictions in their past. And I am so excited about the impact that I'm able to put on the world because of social media. But for people who don't live in the space and make their money and do business here like we do and make real impact, it's just important to be mindful of how much time you're spending and how much value you're putting into your social media experience.
Mike, I just want to thank you so much for sharing this with us today. I hope you had fun. I did. You probably talk so much about this.
I do, but this was a big one though, because I love you. Obviously you're awesome. We spent time on my podcast or on our podcast, and you're an amazing person. So
all right. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Lele.
Love you.
Love you. Thank you.
I've learned so much about the reality of addiction and recovering from our conversation today, and I'm sure everyone listening has as well. If you're dealing with the drug misuse or addiction yourself, or if you have a friend or loved one that's struggling, I really hope hearing Mike's story has shown you that there's really a light at the end of every tunnel. Recovering takes a lot of work. You have to be willing to want to recover, and you have to be willing to actually go through the work of getting better. It means having some tough conversations, but could not be more worth it. And you can see it in Mike's situation. It's never too late to make a positive change in your life. And I think Mike has done a great job showing everybody that. I get why Mike kept his addiction a secret for so long, because there's so much guilt and shame attached to addiction. But it was opening up and telling the truth that helped him put him on a new and better path. And I think that's a reminder that you don't have to try and deal with any of this on your own. You shouldn't. His friends and family showed him empathy, even his boss, and that was a huge step in his healing process. Even if you don't feel safe talking about these issues with your friends and family, there are so many people out there who have been through the same thing and are ready and willing to help you out. The first step is reaching out. If you want to talk to somebody about today's topic or about anything else that's troubling you, please text the word START to 741-741 for a confidential chat with a professional. It is free and they are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I love you all. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. Until next week, stay safe, stay healthy, and be happy.
If you or someone you know are struggling emotionally, text START to 741-741 for a confidential chat anytime.
Thanks for listening to Best Kept Secrets with me, Lele Pons, only on Spotify in partnerships with Shot Studios. The Shot Studios original team includes creators John Shahidi and Sam Shahidi, my lovely producer Belinda Mercer, and audio editor Stephen Colon. From Spotify Studios, executive producers Javier Pinol, Liz Gately, Gina Delvac, and Danny Treboj. And a special thanks to Dan Behar, Jessica Molina, Francisco Quijada, and Julio Pabon. I'm Lele. Follow me on Instagram at Lele Pons and check out my exclusive merch at lilshop.com. That is Lil Shop, Lil shop.com. Talk to you next week.